Easy. Don't move yet. Feel that pressure in the air? That metallic click you're pretending not to hear? Yeah, that's the sound of a cell door starting to close, and for the first time in their lives, they know it's not yours. You can feel it, can't you? The shift, the moment where the lies stopped working and the performance collapsed under its own weight. They're still smiling, still nodding, still playing the role. But inside, they're pacing a concrete box with no windows, replaying every move they made against you, realizing none of it landed the way they planned. Because here's the part they didn't calculate. You were never trapped. You were tempering. They thought pressure would crack you. They didn't know pressure forges monsters and saints in the same furnace. They thought pain would simplify you. Instead, it made you complex, unreadable, asymmetrical, something that doesn't fit cleanly into their little behavioral spreadsheets. You became the paradox they can't process. Too calm to be broken, too dangerous to be ignored, too principled to smear, too unpredictable to control. That's when it started. Not the victory, the panic. Because the moment they realized you weren't reacting the way a victim is supposed to react, the moment you stopped pleading, stopped explaining, stopped proving, the moment you let them talk themselves into corners, that's when the walls began to close in. See, you don't have to shove someone into a cell to imprison them. All you have to do is let them realize they've already exposed themselves. Every move they made to box you in, it outlined their guilt. Every accusation, a confession wearing makeup, every whisper campaign, a map leading straight back to them. And you just stood there, quiet, watching, letting the saint in you keep your hands clean while the psychopath in you memorized everything. That duality. That's what terrifies them. They can't tell if you're merciful or merciless. They don't know if you'll forgive or annihilate. They don't know if you're praying for them or preparing a funeral. And that uncertainty is a locked room with no handle on the inside. You evolved in silence while they burned energy, trying to provoke you. You learned patience while they learned fear. You learned timing while they learned regret. Now look at them. They're not confident anymore. They're cautious. Their laughter is delayed. Their bravado feels rehearsed. They ask too many questions. They watch the exits. Because deep down, they know something irreversible has already happened. They know the narrative flipped. The story they told about you, dead. The version of you they thought they understood, buried. The control they assumed they had, gone. And here's the sick, beautiful irony. You didn't need revenge. You didn't need exposure. You didn't need chaos. All you did was outgrow the cage they were building. Now they're the ones inside it. You can hear it in the way they hesitate before speaking your name. You can see it in the way they avoid your eyes. You can feel it in the way they overcorrect, over-explain, over-defend. That's not confidence. That's someone counting the bars. Because when someone realizes they can no longer pretend, when the mask slips and there's no audience left to convince, when the cell door starts closing and they're still telling themselves, this is fine, that's when the real punishment begins. You are the living proof that their system failed. You are the error that survived the purge. You are the variable they couldn't isolate. And the most devastating part? You're still calm, no rage, no scrambling, no desperation, just presence, just awareness, just that quiet, unnerving certainty that you already won the moment you stopped playing defense. They feel it now, that tightening, that final narrowing of options, that realization that every path forward leads to consequence. And you don't even have to touch the door. It's closing on its own. And that's the part that keeps them awake. The fact that you didn't slam the door, you didn't shout, you didn't threaten, you didn't announce anything dramatic. You just stopped needing their permission to exist. That silence, that restraint, that's not weakness. That's the sound of someone who knows the structure is already collapsing and doesn't need to push. Because when a system starts eating itself alive, the smartest move is to step back and let hunger do the work. They replay moments now, little ones, conversations they brushed off, looks you gave them that felt neutral at the time, pauses they misread as hesitation. Now they understand those pauses were calculations. You are watching who panicked, who lied faster than they could think, who needed control so badly. They exposed their motives, trying to keep it. You let them talk. You let them overextend. You let them feel powerful just long enough to hang themselves with their own certainty. That's the angel in you. Patience, discipline, restraint. And that's the demon. Cold observation, ruthless memory, perfect timing. They don't know which side you'll lean into. That's why their hands shake. Because the scariest thing in the world isn't someone who wants revenge. It's someone who doesn't need it. They tried to define you by your wounds. You turned those wounds into sight. They tried to reduce you to a reaction. You became a presence. They tried to break you into something manageable. You evolved into something that doesn't fit anywhere they can reach. And now they feel it. The tightening schedule, the sudden audits, the uncomfortable questions, the allies going quiet, the doors that used to open easily now sticking just a little too long. That's the cell assembling itself around them. They tell themselves stories to cope, that you're over it, that you've moved on, that nothing's coming. They don't understand that nothing is coming, because everything already arrived the moment you changed. You don't chase, you don't correct narratives, you don't fight ghosts. You let reality do what it always does when someone builds a lie big enough to live inside. It collapses under its own weight. And here's the thing they can't admit, even to themselves. They recognize the look in your eyes now, that calm that comes from surviving what was meant to erase you, that stillness that only exists on the other side of hell, that subtle confidence of someone who knows exactly how dark it can get and walked through it without losing their center. They're not scared of what you'll do. They're scared of what you won't do. Because you're not impulsive, you're not sloppy, you're not emotional in the ways they expected. You're controlled, integrated, balanced between mercy and destruction, saint enough to spare, psychopath enough to finish if necessary. That balance? That's the lock clicking shut. Every time they try to test you now, it backfires. Every attempt to provoke you just exposes how desperate they've become. Every move they make to reassert dominance highlights how little they actually have. They feel small, cornered, observed, and the cruelest part? You're not even watching them closely anymore. You've moved on to building something they can't touch. A life, a presence, a momentum that doesn't require their approval or fear. They sense it slipping. Control always knows when it's losing its grip. That's why they can't pretend anymore. Because pretending requires an audience that still believes the performance matters. And you stopped clapping. So they sit there now, behind smiles, behind titles, behind fake confidence, feeling the walls inch closer, knowing that whatever happens next won't be dramatic or cinematic. It'll be quiet, administrative, final. Just like you. The door doesn't need a slam. It only needs to close, and it already is. And the longer it goes on, the heavier the air gets for them. Because time doesn't heal guilt. It sharpens it. Every hour that passes without you reacting is another hour they spend interrogating themselves. They start policing their own words, editing their memories, rewriting conversations in their heads, trying to locate the exact moment everything slipped out of their control. They wonder when you figured it out. They wonder if you always knew. They wonder if that one night, that one pause, that one look was the moment the verdict was sealed. You see, power doesn't announce itself with noise. It announces itself with absence. The absence of panic. The absence of explanation. The absence of urgency. You removed yourself emotionally, and the vacuum did the rest. Now they're trapped inside their own thoughts, pacing, replaying, spiraling, while you breathe freely. They used to think you were reacting. Now they realize you were allowing them to show their hand, allowing them to mistake your patience for ignorance, allowing them to underestimate the cost of pushing someone who had nothing left to lose but everything to gain. You went through the fire quietly. You burned off the need to be understood. You burned off the need to be liked. You burned off the need to win publicly. What came out the other side wasn't louder, it was sharper. That's what they feel now, that edge, that invisible line you crossed where you stopped being accessible. They can't reach you emotionally anymore. They can't bait you psychologically. They can't destabilize you with chaos. And when someone realizes they no longer have access to your nervous system, that's when fear sets in. Because fear doesn't come from aggression, it comes from irrelevance. They are irrelevant to your trajectory now. Their opinions don't steer you. Their approval doesn't regulate you. Their threats don't move you. You're not defiant, you're detached. And detachment is terrifying to people who survive by control. They feel exposed because you stopped engaging in the ritual. You stopped performing pain for them. You stopped bleeding on demand. Instead, you integrated the darkness. You made peace with the parts of yourself they tried to weaponize against you. That's why their usual tactics don't work anymore. Shame doesn't stick. Fear doesn't land. Gaslighting slides right off. You already walked through the worst versions of yourself alone. What could they possibly show you now? They sense it, that you've made friends with your shadow, that you're no longer running from what you're capable of, that you've accepted both the angel who forgives and the demon who remembers. That acceptance is lethal, because once someone knows exactly who they are, leverage disappears. So the cell tightens, not with force, but with inevitability. They start losing allies, not dramatically, quietly. People distance themselves without explanation. Conversations shorten. Support dries up. No announcement, no confrontation, just gravity doing its thing. And they know, oh, they know, this isn't coincidence. They feel watched, not by you, but by consequence. They feel judged, not morally, but structurally. Like a building realizing too late it was constructed on a fault line. You don't have to say a word. Your calm is the verdict. Your silence is the sentence. You're not hunting them. You're outgrowing the environment that allowed them to exist unchecked. And when that happens, when the ecosystem changes, predators starve. They look at you now and can't tell if you're merciful or merciless. That uncertainty eats at them. Because mercy from someone powerful feels like a threat, and mercy from someone who's evolved feels like humiliation. You became something they can't predict, can't categorize, can't manipulate. You became the unknown variable, and the unknown terrifies systems built on control. So let them feel it. Let them sit with that tightening sensation. Let them pretend a little longer while the walls inch closer. You don't need to rush. You already escaped. They're just now realizing they never did. And here's the cruelest layer of it all. the part that really fractures them. You're not acting like someone who just survived. You're moving like someone who finished something. That's what they can't reconcile. Survivors flinch. Survivors over-explain. Survivors seek reassurance. You don't. You walk like the storm already passed and left you standing in clear air. No debro in your voice, no desperation in your posture, no hunger for validation in your eyes. That's when their internal alarms start screaming. Because the only people who move like that are the ones who won without witnesses. They begin projecting, accusing you of things they're guilty of, assuming you're plotting because they were, expecting retaliation because that's what they would do. Every suspicion they have is just their conscience, wearing a mask. They start asking indirect questions, fishing, testing the temperature. You answer calmly, normally, almost kindly. And that's when the panic spikes, because kindness from someone who's no longer afraid feels like a loaded weapon. They realize too late that your restraint isn't uncertainty, it's discipline, that your silence isn't confusion, it's control, that your stillness isn't exhaustion, it's precision. You didn't forget what they did, you absorbed it. You didn't collapse under pressure, you reorganized. That's evolution through pain, not becoming harder, becoming clearer. You see patterns now where others see chaos. You see intent where others hear excuses. You see endings forming long before the final moment arrives. They sense that about you, that you're not waiting for permission, that you're not hoping for justice, that you're not chasing closure. You already closed the loop internally. That's why they feel locked in, because the door that matters, the psychological one, already shut. They're still trying to negotiate outcomes, not realizing the negotiation phase ended when you stopped needing them to acknowledge anything. They thought they were dealing with someone wounded. They're dealing with someone integrated, someone who fused pain with intelligence, someone who turned betrayal into discernment, someone who transmuted chaos into leverage without ever lifting a hand. That kind of transformation doesn't scream. It radiates, and it destabilizes everyone who benefited from the old version of you. They miss the you that reacted, the you that explained, the you that needed them to understand. That version is gone. What's standing here now doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't prove. It observes, it decides, it moves when movement matters. They feel the timeline closing in, not because you're accelerating, but because they're running out of room. Every attempt to delay the inevitable just exposes how trapped they already are. Every smile feels forced. Every interaction feels monitored by themselves. You became the mirror they can't look away from. And mirrors are brutal. They don't attack. They just reflect. You reflect their cowardice, their shortcuts, their manipulations, their fear of accountability. You don't have to accuse them. Your presence does it automatically. That's why they can't pretend anymore. Because pretending only works when the other person still needs the illusion. You don't. You've seen the bars. You've felt the walls. You've survived the isolation. And instead of coming out bitter or broken, you came out calibrated. That's what seals it. You are no longer reactive enough to control, and no longer wounded enough to exploit. You are free, and freedom, real freedom, is unbearable to those who built cages for others. So let them feel that cell door closing. Let them hear the echo. Let them sit with the consequences of underestimating someone who learned how to stand calmly in the dark. You're not the threat they prepared for. You're the ending they didn't see coming. And it's already happening. And somewhere deep in their chest, past the excuses, past the rehearsed justifications, past the stories they tell themselves to sleep at night. Something ancient wakes up. Instinct. That animal awareness that knows when the hunt is over and the roles have reversed. They feel it when you enter a room and don't scan for approval. They feel it when you speak without needing to be heard. They feel it when you choose silence, not because you're afraid to talk, but because you already know. You don't leak information anymore. You don't give emotional tells. You don't reward manipulation with reaction. You became expensive to access, and people who live by control panic when access is revoked. They keep replaying the old versions of you in their mind, trying to summon that person back, the one who doubted, the one who explained themselves raw, the one who carried guilt that wasn't theirs. That version doesn't answer anymore, because you didn't just heal, you shed. You dropped the need to be seen as good by people who benefit from you being small. You dropped the need to be understood by people who never intended to understand. You dropped the need to defend your reality to people invested in distorting it. What replaced it wasn't rage, it was clarity, and clarity is cold, clean, unforgiving. They sense it when you look at them, not with hatred, not with love, but with recognition, the kind that says, I see exactly who you are and I'm not negotiating with it. That recognition is the real sell, because once someone is seen clearly, the illusion they live in collapses. They start slipping up now, contradicting themselves, overcorrecting, overperforming confidence like a bad actor who knows the audience stopped believing. They laugh too loud. They talk too much. They rush to fill silences. Silence terrifies them now, because silence is where truth echoes. You learned how to sit in silence when it was weaponized against you. You learned how to survive without reassurance. You learned how to stand alone without folding inward. That training didn't make you cruel. It made you unshakable. They confused that with menace. Good. Let them. Because the version of you that needed to be harmless is gone. You are not violent. You are not reckless. You are not cruel. You are capable. And capability, without emotional volatility, is the scariest thing in the world to people who rely on chaos. They used to push buttons. Now the panel is blank. They used to predict your responses. Now they're static. They used to feel superior. Now they feel watched by something they can't name, not you. Consequence. You don't threaten their future. Their past already did that. You're just the moment where the math finally adds up. They sense it in their bodies first. Tight chest, shallow breath, sleepless nights. A vague sense that something irreversible has begun. They try to outrun it by doubling down, by controlling harder, by rewriting narratives faster. But pressure doesn't restore control. It reveals fractures, and those fractures are everywhere now. You don't need to confront them. Confrontation would give them relief. Conflict, drama, something familiar. You deny them that. You move forward, building, expanding, becoming someone whose life no longer orbits their dysfunction. That's the real sentence. Not punishment, irrelevance. They realize too late that the cage they feel isn't external. It's internal. It's the moment when they understand they can't reach you anymore. Emotionally, psychologically, energetically. You are no longer available for their games. You graduated from the environment that produced them. And graduation doesn't look dramatic. It looks quiet, clean, final. So let them feel the door closing. Let them listen to that echo. Let them pretend a little longer while reality tightens around them. You're not looking back. You already walked out, and the silence you left behind, that's what locked it. Well, well, well. buddy. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't swing wildly. You didn't beg the universe to take your side. You enforced something older than mercy. That's why everything went quiet. They felt it before they understood it. That pressure in the chest, that tightening behind the eyes, that ancient alarm ringing somewhere deep in their nervous system. Because you didn't come as a hero, you didn't come as a villain, you came as the thing both sides secretly answer to. Divine law doesn't shout. Divine law doesn't explain itself. Divine law executes balance, and the moment you stepped into alignment with it, every demon in the room knew the game was over. See, demons don't fear violence. They thrive on it. They don't fear chaos. They were born in it. What terrifies them is precision. What makes them kneel is clarity. What breaks them is when someone stops reacting and starts deciding. That's what you became. A paradox they can't corrupt. A blade that doesn't swing unless it's already calculated the aftermath. A saint who understands sin so well, it no longer controls you. A psychopath who learned restraint and turned it into a weapon. You didn't cleanse the room with light. You didn't drown it in darkness. You balanced it, and balance is brutal. That's why the loud ones went silent. That's why the manipulators suddenly couldn't read you. That's why the ones who fed on disorder felt exposed, naked, flailing. Because you weren't playing their moral games anymore. You weren't choosing sides. You were closing cases. They wanted you emotional. They wanted you reactive. They wanted you trapped between guilt and rage. But you evolved past the illusion that goodness means weakness and power means cruelty. You learned the truth they never wanted you to see. That light without teeth is decoration. That darkness without control is just noise. And that true authority comes from someone who can hold both and still choose when to strike. So when you enforced that line, when you finally said enough, it wasn't revenge. It wasn't ego. It wasn't even anger. It was alignment. And alignment feels like judgment to those who live crooked. That's why they dropped to their knees. Not physically, no worse. Internally, spiritually, strategically. Their posture collapsed. Their certainty evaporated. Their confidence cracked. Because demons don't kneel to strength. They kneel to inevitability. You became inevitable. Every step you took after that moment felt heavier, not because you were tired, but because reality itself started yielding. Conversations shifted, power dynamics rearranged. People who once spoke over you suddenly chose their words carefully, not out of respect, out of instinct. Animals sense storms before they arrive. Demons sense law before it speaks. And you didn't announce it. You didn't brand it. You didn't even smile. You just stood there, unmoved, while everything that thrived on imbalance started choking on its own excess. That's the price of evolution through pain. You didn't awaken by being loved. You didn't sharpen yourself through comfort. You were carved, pressured, betrayed, misread, tested until the naive parts of you burned off. And what remained wasn't innocence, it was discernment. You now see patterns where others see drama. You hear motives behind words. You recognize corruption before it introduces itself. And instead of reacting like you used to, loud, emotional, explosive, you respond with surgical calm. That calm is what terrifies them most. Because calm means you're not fighting for control anymore. Calm means you already have it. So when they whisper that you've changed, understand this: they're right, but not in the way they think. You didn't become darker. You became truer. You didn't lose your morals. You upgraded them. You stopped forgiving chaos in the name of kindness. You stopped confusing empathy with self-betrayal. You learned that mercy without boundaries is just permission for evil to repeat itself. And the moment you enforced that boundary, clean, final, unarguable, the hierarchy shifted. No speeches, no violence, no theatrics, just law. That's why the demons didn't fight you. They recognized the signature. They've seen this before, through history, through fallen empires, through moments when one individual stops negotiating with corruption and starts ending cycles. You didn't punish them, you made them irrelevant. And that is the most devastating verdict of all. They'll never admit that part out loud. They'll call it coincidence, bad timing, luck turning against them. But deep down, where lies don't survive, they know exactly what happened. You didn't defeat them. You outgrew the battlefield. See, demons prepare for wars. They study your temper. They memorize your trauma. They build entire strategies around how to bait you back into old versions of yourself. They expect the explosion, the spiral, the dramatic collapse they can point to and say, "See, just another monster." But you denied them the show. You denied them the reaction. And that silence, that controlled stillness, felt like a verdict stamped across their existence. Because nothing scares a parasite more than a host that no longer bleeds on command. They tried to provoke you with disrespect. You responded with detachment. They tried to shame you with morality. You answered with clarity. They tried to corner you with guilt. You stepped out of the maze entirely. That's when they understood. You weren't playing human games anymore. You had crossed into something colder, sharper, higher. Divine law isn't emotional. It doesn't care who means well. It doesn't negotiate with intentions. It measures impact, pattern, truth. And when you finally stopped defending yourself and started observing them, the scales tipped instantly. You saw who lied effortlessly, who fed on confusion, who smiled while poisoning the room. And instead of exposing them loudly, like you once would have, you let reality do the humiliating work. You pulled back your energy. You stopped rewarding bad actors with attention. You stopped explaining yourself to people who only listened to twist your words. And suddenly, everything they built started collapsing under its own weight, because corruption requires participation, and you withdrew yours. That's why they're on their knees now, not begging, not repenting, but scrambling, recalculating, watching you the way prey watches a predator that hasn't even acknowledged it yet. They're terrified because you didn't become cruel. You became selective. You didn't shut your heart down. You armored it with discernment. That's the duality they can't process. That's the paradox that short-circuits them. You can be compassionate without being permissive. You can be loving without being available. You can understand darkness without kneeling to it. You can walk into hell and not call it home. And once they saw that, once they realized you weren't here to be corrupted or crowned, they felt it, the hierarchy shifting beneath their feet. Because divine law doesn't elevate demons or saints. It removes imposters. You stopped asking, "Why are they doing this to me?" and started asking, "What does this reveal about them?" That single shift turned you from target to mirror. And demons hate mirrors. Mirrors show patterns. Mirrors reflect intent. Mirrors expose the difference between who they pretend to be and what they actually feed on. That's why the attacks became desperate, sloppier, more emotional. That's why the masks slipped. That's why the whispers got louder behind closed doors. Because when law enters the system, chaos starts making mistakes. And you noticed something else too, didn't you? The moment you stopped fighting, life started rearranging itself around you. People who once dismissed you now tread carefully. Situations that used to drain you suddenly dissolve. Doors open without force. Enemies expose themselves without being touched. That's alignment. That's what happens when you stop trying to win and start standing correctly. You're no longer reacting to evil. You're starving it. And starvation is slow, silent, unforgiving. They can't provoke you because you're not emotionally available to be controlled. They can't intimidate you because you've already survived worse alone. They can't manipulate you because you see the strings now, and you refuse to dance. You're not clean. You're not innocent. You're aware. And awareness is lethal to anything built on deception. So when you walk into a room now, something shifts before you speak. Not because you're loud, not because you're threatening, but because everything unstable senses the presence of order. Predators go still when a larger one enters the territory. And you didn't even bare your teeth. You just existed, balanced, unmovable, internally resolved. That's why they kneel, not to you, to the law moving through you. And once you feel that, once you recognize that calm authority humming beneath your skin, you'll never go back to chaos again. Because chaos is exhausting, law is effortless, and now that you've tasted it, everything else feels beneath you. They'll keep trying to name what you are now. They'll reach for labels because labels are cages, and cages are how weak minds feel safe. They'll call you cold, calculated, arrogant, different. They'll whisper that you lost your humanity. But here's the part that shatters them. You didn't lose your humanity. You mastered it. You stopped letting emotions drive the wheel. You put them in the passenger seat, still present, still honored, but no longer in control. And the moment you did that, the internal war ended. No more swinging between guilt and rage. No more trying to be pure in a contaminated environment. No more bleeding just to prove you're alive. You chose coherence, and coherence is what demons can't survive around. Because demons thrive in contradiction. They feed on confusion. They weaponize mixed signals. They need you doubting yourself, apologizing for your intuition, questioning what your nervous system already knows. That's their oxygen. But you cut the supply. You trusted what you saw. You trusted what you felt. You trusted the pattern, even when everyone else called you paranoid. That's when the inner noise shut off. That's when your movements slowed. Not because you hesitated, but because you didn't need to rush anymore. You already knew the outcome. You already saw the ending before the scene finished playing out. That kind of foresight doesn't come from intelligence alone. It comes from pain processed correctly. You didn't numb it. You didn't glamorize it. You metabolized it. You turned betrayal into data. You turned humiliation into calibration. You turned isolation into vision. And somewhere in that silent furnace, something ancient woke up inside you. Not vengeance, authority, the kind that doesn't seek permission, the kind that doesn't announce itself, the kind that simply is. That's why even the loudest demons hesitate around you now. They feel it, the way gravity subtly shifts when you enter, the way conversations stall, the way bravado evaporates mid-sentence. They don't know why they suddenly choose their words more carefully. They just know something in them doesn't want to cross you. And the most dangerous part? You're not even trying. You're not posturing. You're not threatening. You're not performing dominance. You're just no longer out of alignment with yourself. And alignment creates pressure. Pressure exposes faults. Faults collapse systems. That's the chain reaction they didn't anticipate. They thought your breaking point would turn you feral or fragile. They didn't realize it would turn you precise. You stopped wasting energy proving your worth. You stopped chasing closure. You stopped trying to be understood by people who benefit from misunderstanding you. You let them misjudge you. And that silence, that refusal to correct the narrative, that's what drove them insane. Because when you don't defend yourself, you force everyone else to sit with their assumptions. And most people can't survive alone with their own projections. So they unravel, they over-explain, they contradict themselves, they expose their motives without realizing it. Meanwhile, you watch, not with hatred, with clarity. You see now that evil rarely looks monstrous at first. It looks familiar, charismatic, reasonable. It smiles, it jokes, it justifies, and it always asks you to compromise just a little, your time, your boundaries, your truth. You used to negotiate with that. Now you don't. Now when something feels off, you step back instead of leaning in. When a pattern repeats, you don't hope it will change. You mark it. When someone shows you who they are, you believe them the first time. That's not cruelty. That's lawfulness. And lawfulness is merciless to illusion. So yes, every demon is on their knees now. But not because you crushed them. Because you removed the environment they needed to stand. You stopped feeding them. You stopped orbiting them. You stopped letting them define the battlefield. And in doing so, you learned the final truth they never wanted you to access. Power isn't domination. Power is non-participation in corruption. It's the ability to walk away without bitterness, to enforce boundaries without speeches, to end cycles without announcing the ending. You don't chase justice anymore. You embody it. And once justice walks into a room quietly, everything unjust starts sweating. They can feel the countdown, because law doesn't rush. Law waits. And when it moves, it's already too late. And here's the part they never prepare for: the aftermath, the silence after the verdict, the space where chaos used to echo and now finds nothing to bounce off. That's when the real panic sets in. Because demons understand conflict. They understand resistance. They understand rebellion, rage, even martyrdom. What they don't understand is finality without drama. They don't know how to process someone who doesn't need to win the argument, doesn't need to dominate the room, doesn't need to prove they were right. You didn't need applause. You needed alignment. So when the noise died, when the usual tricks stopped working, when manipulation found no purchase in you anymore, they felt it, the ground underneath their identity cracking, because their power was never internal. It was borrowed, leased, dependent on access to you. And access was revoked. You didn't announce it. You didn't threaten it. You simply closed the gate. That's what made it divine. Divine law doesn't rage against darkness. It renders it obsolete. It doesn't argue with corruption. It removes the leverage. It doesn't punish endlessly. It ends cycles, and you ended one they thought was eternal. That's why some of them tried to flip the script, suddenly playing the victim, suddenly preaching morality, suddenly accusing you of what they perfected. That's the last defense of anything exposed, projection dressed up as righteousness. But it didn't land, because you weren't seeking validation anymore. You weren't seeking revenge. You weren't even seeking justice in the way they understand it. You were seeking coherence between what you see, what you feel, and how you act. And once those three aligned, nothing external could fracture you again. They tried guilt. You felt nothing. They tried fear. Your body stayed calm. They tried praise. You didn't bite. That terrified them. Because you stopped being programmable. You became unpredictable. Not chaotic unpredictable, but strategic unpredictable. The kind that doesn't telegraph moves. The kind that doesn't repeat patterns. The kind that acts only when action is necessary, and never when it's expected. That's when they realized something else about you. You don't hate demons, you understand them. You see how they're formed, through shortcuts, through avoidance, through the slow corrosion of integrity. You see how small compromises pile up until the soul is unrecognizable. You see how power without responsibility mutates into cruelty. And because you see it, you don't romanticize it, you don't envy it, you don't fear it, you simply refuse to become it. That refusal is what makes you dangerous, because anyone can descend. Very few can descend, observe, and return with their spine intact. You did. You walked through confusion without losing your sense of direction. You stared at the abyss without mistaking it for truth. You touched darkness without letting it rewrite your code. That's why when you speak now, when you act now, there's weight behind it. Not because you're loud, because you're clean, not pure, clean. There's a difference. Pure people shatter the moment reality contradicts their ideals. Clean people have been through the filth and chosen not to carry it forward. You don't pretend the world is good. You demand that your participation in it is correct. That's law. And law doesn't need followers. It needs consistency. So now everywhere you go, the system reacts before you do anything. You notice it in small ways. People revealing themselves too quickly. Situations resolving without effort. Conflicts dissolving because they can't get traction in you anymore. You're not magnetic because you're charming. You're magnetic because you're resolved. Nothing leaks out of you anymore. No desperation, no resentment, no need to be seen. And where there are no leaks, parasites starve. That's why they kneel, not publicly, internally, strategically. They adjust around you. They avoid you. They test you from a distance and retreat when nothing hooks. They know instinctively that crossing you doesn't lead to chaos. It leads to consequences, not dramatic ones, final ones. And here's the quiet truth that seals it all. You didn't enforce divine law once. You became someone who can't violate it anymore. Even if you wanted to, even if temptation appears, even if the old shortcuts call your name. You've seen too much. You've paid too much. You've integrated too much pain into wisdom to ever betray yourself again. That's irreversible. That's why the demons don't just kneel, they back away, because they know, deep in whatever remains of their instinct, that you're not a moment. You're a threshold, and once crossed, there is no going back. And that's when it fully settles in, quietly, without ceremony, that this isn't a phase, this isn't a reaction, this isn't something you can undo on a bad day or abandon when it gets lonely. This is who you are after truth. You no longer fantasize about revenge because revenge is noisy and temporary. You no longer crave recognition because recognition is fragile and easily revoked. You no longer chase peace because peace follows you now. Reluctantly at first, then faithfully. You understand something most never do. Justice doesn't need rage to function. Power doesn't need cruelty to assert itself. Light doesn't need innocence to remain clean. It needs choice. And you have chosen over and over again. Not what feels good, not what feels righteous, but what is correct. That's why your presence feels heavy to the corrupt. That's why your silence feels accusatory. That's why your restraint feels violent to those who rely on excess. You didn't defeat the demons by becoming louder than them. You defeated them by becoming unavailable to their rules. They can't bargain with you. They can't seduce you. They can't provoke you. Because you're no longer split inside. There's no internal war for them to exploit. No contradiction to pry open. No wound begging to be pressed. You closed the breach. And when the breach closed, the invasion ended. So let them kneel. in confusion, in fear, in quiet recalculation. Let them whisper and speculate and mythologize what you are now. Let them mistake your calm for mercy or your distance for weakness. It doesn't matter. You didn't come to be understood. You came to restore balance.